And I'll get yelled at already for not turning on my mic. Thank you, Rhonda, for being here, helping us out.
It didn't count since your mic wasn't on yet, so it's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah.
For us cyclists, there's a line, if it's not on Strava, it doesn't count. So I
Yeah.
think it's sort of like this, if your microphone's on, it doesn't count. So, first item of business was the minutes from January. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. I've signed mine. I'll pass that around. Updates. I'll start with the Chinworth, although we have one of our triad members here. Maybe you'd like to tell us the status. That'd be great. Make sure you turn on the microphone, please. Don't be me.
Am I on?
Yes.
So the latest is, I just spoke with the surveyor coming across over here. They have it in the schedule to start surveying the end of this week, early part of next week, and then it'll be 30 days before we get drawings from them to start our work. So, we just started the process. It's going to kick off soon as we get the survey.
So what does the survey results look like? Since we haven't done one before, I'm just sort of curious. What are you going to get?
So they're getting both sides of the road, topo, and everything at grade.
Okay.
Driveways, street intersections, trees, power poles, you name it, anything that's in our way. And they're going to fly it by drone to get the topography of it.
Okay.
Does that extend to the right of way? Just, is that the boundary?
To the right of way.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
And it'll show property corners only, not property lines, just property corners as they find them. So it's going to be a while before we get that to where we can go meet with the highway department, sit down with you guys about alignment.
Okay.
So I know you guys are anxious.
Well, we also know it's
I
a
gotta-
process. That's why there was a
I got to
calendar.
ask you to tap the brakes a little bit. There is a process. Surveying takes a while to collect the field data, then they got to put it in the computer and they got to draw their little pretty symbols and everything and confirm it to make sure it's real.
Okay.
So then, once they hand off to us, then we start laying in alignment.
And I did send an email asking them for an update just because I knew we wanted one for today. And I'll probably send one like that next month too, just to
That's
make sure
fine.
if I haven't heard exactly
Yep.
where we're at.
Hopefully, next month's meeting, we have the survey and we can start meeting and doing the design.
Okay.
Hey, John, who's doing that surveying for you? Just out of
Lakewood
curiosity.
Surveying, they're out of Wolf Lake.
Okay,
Ryan Weber, he does a lot of surveying for us.
okay, thanks.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any questions for Chinworth?
So there's not been a determination of which side of the road that's gonna go on?
I think right now, from what we've preliminarily looked at, we're looking at the south side, but because of some comments that came up in the previous meeting, I can't remember who exactly threw it out there, but what about the neighborhood to the north? Are we going to be able to cross? So how do we cross over to that? There's some possibilities in spots. Maybe it's phase 2 and 3 that will cross. But I think this first phase, we're going to probably be on the left side of the road. I know we talked about going on the other side of the river. I looked at that. I don't think you want to go that way. That's going to require a lot of easements, a lot of property negotiation, a lot of cost. I think we stay in the right of way of Old 30 to get this first phase done. I think my gut tells me that's what we're going to do. As straight or as we can meander it. I mean, we got to stay within the right of way to minimize your expense
Right,
on
right.
easements.
And
So,
that was obviously the plan.
yeah.
And we want to end up in Creighton's parking lot, for lack of a better term. So that also puts us on the south side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, at least for this phase.
That's the reason I asked, because it would require, if it was on the north side, crossing and then going back across the road.
Yeah. And when Maggie and I met with Steve at the highway department, crossing Old 30 is going to be not pleasant in terms of what we have to go through to get permission to do
You
that.
don't want to do it at 55 miles an hour.
Right.
Like if, maybe in Atwood, maybe in Etna Green, we'll have a crossing. Maybe it's to our best interest to cross and stay on that north side through Atwood and then jump back. I don't know.
Right.
That's why we're looking at the whole right of way to assess which is the best alignment.
Great. Well, thank you for coming today.
Sure, no problem. Anything else?
Not from you.
Okay.
Trails Master Plan, anybody have an update on?
Okay, this is a very brief update. So the first meeting of our steering committee has been set, and it's for Monday, February the 26th, from 10 to noon. And we will be in the Justice Building across the street, lower level, in the room that has the good AV equipment for,
Where we've met before.
yeah, where we've met before, but yeah.
Okay.
In that room. Okay.
So we'll make sure we get that emailed. We said we'd let you guys know that.
I know that the team working with us, they have met to start preparations for the project and for working with us. And Mike and I have offered to connect with Katie prior to that first steering committee meeting. And we're still waiting to hear back from her. But I know they'll be ready for that first meeting.
Any questions about that project?
What does it look like, what's the main feel of the meeting going to be like with that?
So what I understand with this first meeting, and they're asking us to hold 2 hours, is really to do an overview of what's this Trails, Blueway, Greenway Master Plan all about, where are we going, starting to gather some information, building upon the work already done, the Forward Kosciuszko and our 5-year Parks Master Plan, and kind of going from there. But I
The
think
first
it-
meeting will be the first time that the steering committee we put together is together. So I imagine it's getting that group together, setting expectations, defining what the project is, so we can move forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the scope of work with them is super detailed. So it's like, kind of like all of that, but all of that is several pages, as you may remember from their proposal, and that's also what's in our agreement with them. So I think it'll be real interesting. Rob has suggested that all of us on Parks Board try to attend that, schedules allowing. And then Mike and I are definitely committed for, representing Parks Board on the steering committee. But that doesn't mean that other Park Board members cannot attend those meetings.
Right, especially the kickoff meeting. I feel really strongly. And Carrie, I'll send you an email about that as well. So we want some other county folk attending that. Although it really is for the people on that committee, we all need to sort of know what's going on.
Is that a public meeting?
I think we decided that's probably going to be a public meeting because I think Dan Spalding had asked last time if they could attend, and I said yes. I don't
Okay.
know why there'd be anything super critical or secret in that meeting.
I-
So I shouldn't
I
say, it's not
think
really a public meeting like this is a public meeting,
Right.
but it's certainly a meeting the media can attend is probably a better way to put it.
It's open to the public.
Yeah.
And that was my question. It's open to the public. Okay.
It's open to the public. And then the other thing, this is just a little bit of a footnote to what's in our minutes from last time. There's 2 members of the Trails Master Plan Steering Committee who hadn't yet been confirmed when we met last time. And Amy Rowe confirmed her participation. We just hadn't heard back from her yet. And Craig
Alaba,
Alaba.
who's in attendance today.
Don't say anything bad about him.
And we should also acknowledge that the city of Winona Lake has put in some of the funding for this along with the ARPA funds.
Now, as we kind of get down the path with that, I mean, I know that you and Mike are kind of the subcommittee with that. I would like to be able to play a role, especially when it relates to the Blueways, as we start to kind of unfold that, because I have a passion for that particular area, and I'd like to stay engaged and make sure I can contribute.
Terrific.
Happy to have you on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Troy, same kind of boat, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in.
I think, Aggie and I are working with Katie to help make sure everything's organized. But in terms of attendance and input, as Rob has said, I think more of the board that is there, the better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next item was review of goals, and I think this is Aggie's idea from the last meeting, and frankly, it's a fantastic idea. I think Rhonda has, in her office, have ensured we have the priority action schedule printed out today. Thank you, Rhonda. And I looked at that before we came over, and I think it's clear that some of it we're working on, some of it is really part of the trail master plan we need to complete first.
Yep.
But I'd like to, in addition, go through it, because I think there are things in here that we can agree that we probably ought to do things about. You know, the first one on the priority goals was add trail connections between communities. And I just wanted to bring up a couple things that are going on in regard to that. Mike and I have been approached by Amy Rowe, of all people. For those of you who don't know, Amy Rowe is a city council person from the city of Rochester, as well as being Kosciuszko's, I don't know what her title is, ARPA, help, everything else. Community coordinator, thank you. We had a president who was a community coordinator at one point.
Community organizer.
Community
Organizer.
organizer. So there is a meeting in Rochester, March 11th with their city parks department that Mike is going to attend. I'm not going to be in town, otherwise I'd be attending. There is discussion over there about extending the nickel plate northward into Marshall, and there's some route decisions they have to make. I know from talking to Amy that their master plan is not up to date, and we talked about, you know, if we ever get to the point like they did in south of Indy, where there's a number of counties who all go together and get a huge grant from the state, we need them to get that updated. So I think it's great. That's part of what we were talking about in terms of linking stuff. Mike's also got.
Before we go, I mean, so she approached the two of us. You're not available.
Right.
I'm happy to represent, but if anybody else wants to join me, I can
Absolutely.
send the information to the group. So, again, it's March 11th, 6 PM, I think, down in the city of Rochester.
And I think their county parks people might have a few there too, from the sounds of it. At least, I think she was hopeful. So we really could tick off a few organizations there. In the same vein, and Mike, you're probably better to talk about this. Why don't you talk about what's going on with Pumpkin Vine and meeting up with them?
Yeah, so when I was down with KCV at the State House in Bicycle, Indiana, a few weeks ago, and speaking with Peter Hru, who is, has a number of different cycling leadership roles in Elkhart County. But in speaking with him, he wanted to put together a group to start talking about how do we start connecting the Pumpkin Vine to at least Syracuse, Wawasee, if not into Kosciuszko County. So we have a meeting on February 23rd, which is actually next Friday, with Peter, with Brittany, who I think represents the Pumpkin Vine, and also with Amanda Plank, who's the executive director of the Syracuse Wawasee Trails. So that'll be initial discussion in terms of, you know, what their thoughts are, what our thoughts are. I think, you know, all this can eventually feed into our Trails Master Plan as well.
And that's when as well you invited me to attend. Unfortunately, it's a Friday morning, which is my busiest day of the week in the office.
I think it's
So-
afternoon at 2 PM.
Was it at 2?
Yeah,
Let me look my calendar again. What date was it again?
next Friday, the 23rd.
And where was that, Mike?
It's up in Goshen.
Goshen.
Again, you know, if people want to join, they can.
Yeah,
To-
it is.
Okay,
Yeah, I should be able to do that then.
okay.
The other thing that we've done in that vein is Amanda Plank, again from the Syracuse Wawasee Trails, has agreed to take the lead on getting all the county trails people sort of together. I haven't heard from her on where she is on that, but we certainly want to get together with Wawasee. I see Pierston's here, Georgia. Did I hear you won an award recently? Yes. Congratulations.
Women of the Year.
Women of the Year, yep.
All right.
And we thank you for your help with us. But. Sure. Well, I,
is to get this trail from Winoa Lake, that they just put in there, that's 4 miles to Pearson.
Well, I was just gonna,
Praise the Lord, it's getting closer. So I will be coming to your meetings just to hear, and also to the steering committee. As a public meeting, Mayor Glenn is our board president, we may show up to that.
Excellent.
I tell people all the time when we look at trails, just think about how close we are to getting to Pierceton. There's not a lot of miles there, so you will not be forgotten.
I want to second that. I was going to bring it up. I'm glad you primed the pump, so to speak. But there's a lot of potential energy down in that area in Winona Lake as people, there's the new KCV bike pump track and.
Bike park, yep.
Bike park that's going to be there, and potentially there's something big going to be happening at Grace College, a big multi-use building. And so like a destination, Mike, you were saying how important a destination is. This could be really a place to draw people in from Pearston and a safe way to get there. Right now, there is no safe way. So,
We're jumping around a little bit. I'm glad you brought that up. It is one of our specific goals is to have that extension out to Pearson from Winona Lake.
Yeah. And
Right.
just with this trails master plan process, it's going to take, we think, 8 months at least. And while there is a steering committee to help guide some of it, there will be multiple opportunities for public input. They just aren't yet all defined and dates assigned and locations set. So please don't feel that that steering committee is the only way to have input or to learn.
Yeah.
And I know our consultant is planning to have information available through a website so that folks can learn and see a lot too.
And they wanted a pretty small committee, and we pushed the size of it the way it is.
Twice what they asked for. Yes.
You know, just going down through here, the linear park system on Tippy, that's.
Stay on the previous topic of contacting the other counties.
Yep.
Carrie, you had mentioned a discussion you had with Marshall County Commissioner. Maybe separately, we can get a name that, you know, if we're meeting with Elkhart now and Rochester with Fulton County, let's go ahead and get Marshall into the mix.
I've had conversations with Mike Burrows, which is the commissioner in Marshall County. I've also had conversations with Susie Wyrick of Elkhart County, so she's commissioner in Elkhart County. So both of them were very interested in what we were doing and how we could make this connection happen.
Right, and I think Marshall County is super critical as Fulton County looks to do this. Those, we need to be tied in with them on what they're going to do in Nickel Plate, because that's, if we can go all the way out to the county line and then connect all the way into the Nickel Plate from there, that would be fantastic. We haven't really talked about going over into Columbia City yet, but I think once we get to Pearston, we can talk about going that direction.
Yep.
Linear park system, I really think that's part of the trail master plan. We talked about that. Operating a park board budget, we aren't really to the point for that at this point in time. We know what we're going to do initially. Nonprofit volunteer group, you know, that's certainly something that I've talked about. I will take the lead on getting back with Stephanie Overby about setting up something through the Community Foundation to be the holder of that organization, if you will. Pocket parts, again, I think the Trail Master Plan is a great place to, that's going to identify locations for us.
I would just say on the pocket parks, again, and it might be my mental thinking of what those might be. I think the Trails Master Plan can influence it, but I don't know if those are quite the same thing or not.
I don't think they are.
So it's just something that we need to keep in mind.
Yes.
Maybe concurrently with that, as we're thinking where trails go, does a pocket park, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, and
Kinda
when we
live there.
were building out our goals, almost a year ago now, we really saw that as more of a medium priority and not a immediate time frame, but a bit further down. So I think it's still real appropriate to let that idea move when the Trails Master Plan is complete.
And we didn't have the Chinworth project quite in the stage we have it now, where we have
No.
money and we're going, when we
No.
put that down as one of the top priorities.
That's
So,
right.
That's always flexible. I think the last two, the unified branding, the centralized hub, I think those are great to talk with all the other parks boards as well.
And I think we've done some of the preliminary work on that
think we
too, in
have.
terms of where it would live. But again, until we have assets, there's not a lot to promote yet. It's more
Right.
promoting the current activities as opposed to current facilities.
Right.
The other kind of piece that's out there, I think, is a goal, and it's in here as a low priority goal, but I think it's changing rapidly, is, the low priority goal was to have a trail extension out to the county line going into Marshall County. I actually feel with the work on the Chinworth, with our additional discussions on doing the design and engineering to get out there, and then the interest with Marshall County and connecting to Nickel Plate, I just, it's in here as a low priority. I think that's becoming a higher priority because it's perhaps a more ready opportunity for us too. And I think we need to take advantage of those where we can.
Yeah, I think the resources are beginning to align to support that for sure.
Yeah.
And as I look through some of the material that Rhonda had prepared for us, the short-term goals to look at this list and the progress that we made is very pleasing to me. Sometimes it's hard to see unless you actually can see a list like this. We're actually have completed a lot of these or are near complete with several, so it's great progress.
And I think some of them, as we do the trails plan, and maybe this is be part of Aggie's and my responsibility, is making sure that we're answering some of these as part of the work.
Yeah.
So we're not, things that do fit in the master plan, we're addressing it, in that either yes, we can, or no, we can't as part of that process.
One of the things we need to get clear in our minds too, before we get too far down the road, with the blueways especially, is we need to determine what is the status of the Tippy River.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it a navigable river? Or, because there was some talk about you can't even walk in the river technically, right? So, I mean, we would be throwing money down the drain if that is the case.
No, not necessarily. No, because you can still use the waterway, just technically can't exit your craft.
Right.
So I think we've had this as an open item to really understand the definition and the advantages or disadvantages it gives us.
Yeah.
But, I mean, right now, there is a livery that has kayak trips, right? But technically, being non-navigable, it could be a trespassing if you exit your.
Or cleaning up snags in the river.
Right,
and- I
exactly.
mean, there's a lot of things that it might behoove us to figure
Yeah.
this out before we get a really wonderful plan, and we're like, no, we can't do any of this.
I think we've made it clear to TSW that we understood this was an issue, and it was part of their requirement to look at it, come back to us and tell us whether this is a feasible route.
Yeah. I got some information from one of the presenters at the DNR Trails Gathering that I attended in late September. So you may remember, I kind of reported out, but I had contacted a woman whose name is Kyle, who is president of a volunteer organization that has several counties in northeast Indiana, but not Kosciuszko, but all of the counties east of us. And they work on water trails, so flowing water and trails. And I asked Kyle about navigable, and is that important? Should we be trying to get a new designation on the Tippy River? And when Kyle had a chance to come back, which was after the meeting when we had talked about this, she said, most of the rivers in their network of blueways are not designated as navigable. And they're careful with their education and signage to make sure that people on the river, paddlers, are aware of that, so they don't trespass on private property. And so she did not see that we needed to get that designation to feel like we could move forward.
Good clarification.
Yeah, so, and she and her organization, and it's one of those big, long acronyms, and it's something about Northeast Indiana Waterways, something or other. But if you're interested, I could send you a link to their website. I'll look it up again.
Do you have something else, Mike?
Yeah, two other things.
Okay.
Back on the extension to the county line.
Yep.
We had an open action item that I think is still open, perhaps, is to determine the cost to complete the engineering and design so we could be ready for, perhaps find funding for that and be ready if grants were available for construction. So I think that's still an open item that we want to close. I think, Triad has provided estimates for that, but I don't know if we want to find out, additional estimates, move forward with that. We kind of need to bring that together, I think, and keep moving towards,
Let me put that on the agenda for next month,
okay?
That's a good idea.
because I know we sort of decided, let's get Triad going and then
Yep.
figure out where we're at, and I think we're at the stage, you're right, we need to decide what we're gonna do there.
Okay. And then the other thing, and Craig, this may be a question for you. I met a gentleman from the Department of Health down at that meeting. I can't remember his name offhand. Yes, Pete Fritz. And he had asked for a copy of our proposal if the money that from Winona Lake was going to be used for it. So I think I just want to be clear on which piece that we're using that money for. Is it the master plan or is
That
it?
was gonna go for the Trails Master Plan, was it not, Craig?
Okay. So Pete had said he needs to review it just to make sure it meets his requirements.
I will send them a copy. I think you sent me a copy of the agreement,
Okay.
but then there was another piece, maybe a more comprehensive piece that went along with that, that you were gonna follow up on.
Related to that proposal?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Oh,
I'll double check my
All right.
email and I'll send them what you had sent me earlier, and then if we need to follow up later, we can.
okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay. Anybody have anything else up here for goals for next year that we haven't already talked about?
Did you bring up the one related to a nonprofit volunteer group?
Yeah, but I said that in the context of what we're setting up through the community foundation. Because I sort of always figured that that fundraiser group would also be the group that would hold Friends of the Park, if you will.
Right, I think that goes back to the meeting that we had with Stephanie maybe
Yeah.
6 months ago or something like that.
And if that doesn't work out that way, we can come back and revisit it. But that was what I had in the back of my head.
Yeah, and from some conversations that happened, and Stephanie was involved in some of them, but I wasn't in that meeting, but she was probably similar. Yeah, it's kind of been my conclusion, we probably do not need like a separate Parks Foundation. It would be cumbersome. But whether or not we need a Friends of the Park volunteer group and how quickly, I'm not sure. We don't yet have a trail that needs to have litter along it picked
Right.
up or whatever. But I don't know if that's something that as early as next year, we may want to have in place. And we don't have to decide that today. I just don't want to lose
Yeah,
sight
I
of
think
it
that makes
if
sense.
we need to.
It probably needs to coincide with the construction, right? So then you know where that entity is, so you know where maybe to pull those volunteers from. But the timing does sound probably closer as that construction begins, might be a great time to be promoting the need for a group like that.
Yeah. And we can certainly look at doing a maintain a mile type program down along there as well.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Rob, if I say something on that?
Absolutely.
What I would see on that with the Friends of the Park is, not that you want to like bombard the public input by only park people, but at the same token, there may be needs for events you're trying to host to get public input that those Friends of the Park can even help with through the planning process. I mean, it's a lot of work depending upon how many communities they're gonna visit or where they're gonna have those public meetings at, that you're able to get some people there and at least help spread the word in their community of, hey, on this day, at this time, we're gonna have public input on the park system in the southern part of the county, and we're gonna meet at Silver Lake. I mean, if they can rally some people to get there to try and get public input, because that's one of the things that you'll find is, well, you walk through the master park plan, just how tough it is to get people to come to those public meetings and really give good input, is always key. So having good proponents out there to get the people there, not necessarily to only speak what they want them to say as far as a particular project, but just trying to get as much input from our county and communities as we can. So the other thing that I thought of when you were talking about those pocket parks probably almost be more, in touch with who's in charge of the Parks Department inside of those to be able to advocate if there's new developments coming into that community. Can there even be acreage or property set aside as the developer's laying out that property for those type of entities to happen? Because usually that's one of the big struggles is they're trying to maximize the density on the property, but is there space that, ends up being this corner piece that really can't be a lot that could, that could possibly be some of those pocket parks to be able to have, advocacy at the different communities where those plans are being looked at, to be able to maybe promote that type of opportunity in the future. Even if nothing's built this time, it's just that it's set aside for future development is always key.
So all those plans go to Matt Sandy, do they not?
Well, only if it's in the county.
Right.
And if it's in the city, I think the town of Syracuse and the city of Warsaw. Every has their own plan. It seems like there's one small, maybe Minto or Every Green. There's a couple or one other small community that has their own planning review. So that Matt could give you the whole list of all the communities that are.
Right.
Actually, I'm not too sure Syracuse didn't flip into ours now. So he can tell you which communities have their own review that he would want to talk with. Otherwise, yes, Matt would be able to see those plans.
Yeah, so I'll talk to Matt about if he sees a development coming up, he could let us know. Maybe one of us could look at it and see if we can advocate for it. And then I think if we have this master parks, county parks meeting, we could discuss that as a concept we'd like to see the individual communities push as well.
Because I think as we look to the future, at least some of the goals that I see is being able to have that accessibility to every resident in Kosciuszko County to have some sort of recreational property that's, I'm not saying it's gotta be within a walking distance, but they shouldn't have to drive 10 miles to get there either, so. Ideally, it's somehow connected by multimodal trail or something that they would be able to get to and recreate, without a vehicle. I know that's a pretty lofty goal. You got a county that's 550 square miles. So that's probably past any of our times, but still, it's something that we can aspire to as we try to develop our communities.
One of the things we could do with the front of the park that would be relatively easy, and we're at a spot we could do this, is to create a mailing list. And so as people come in and come to these community events, we could simply have a sign-up list. And that can be maintained through the Parks Board email.
Oh, I think that'd be a wonderful idea. And for the public forums that we had during the Parks Master Plan process, I know there were, people signed in and left emails. And it would be great to, maybe capture that group of folks and then folks that participate this year too.
I will certainly go back to MACOG and ask them if we could have access to those, if there were email addresses on them. We could certainly send an email out and say, if you want to be left on, so be it. If you don't ever hear from us again, let us know that as well. We'll take you off the list. I don't know that we have tons of emails we'd be sending out, but
Well, I think as we get into public meetings and public input sessions and
Status of
surveys
construction.
on, as NDOT does Route 30 crossings, all those things will be important too to share with that group.
that's true. Maybe more than we think.
Rob, one of the things you may want to think about, because this is a Blue Way plan as well, Blue ways to me aren't just going to be our rivers and streams, but I think there's blue ways that could be across lakes. So most all the lakes in our county have some sort of a lake association, and I don't know whether having that, I don't know who the keeper of that list might be, but almost every lake has some sort of association that would be good to be able to have their kind of input on what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
As you would roll through into those blue ways,
Yeah.
because I can see some of the blue ways are simply just connecting 2 points across the lake that you're making that
All right.
blue way across the lake water.
Craig, you don't know who Winona's is, do you? Who's head of theirs? Or Mike?
Last I knew, it was Chris Cummins. Could be somebody different, but they have a website.
Okay.
Chris Cummins.
For the 60 lakes that are in the Watershed Foundation's area, Lynn Crichton has
That's true.
all of that info.
Yeah.
And I think it's 14 lake associations, and she does an annual meeting with them
Okay.
and has regular communication with them. But that's not the entire county.
Well, I can talk to Lynn. Do you want to talk with Lynn? Let's
Sure.
figure out when their annual meeting is, and that may be the perfect time without overkill to get
Yeah.
10 minutes on their
Yeah.
agenda.
Yeah,
She usually comes to the, I'm the president of the Center Lake Conservation Association. She usually comes to our April meeting. And I talk with Lynn quite frequently, and I'd be more than happy to follow up with her for that
Okay.
information. I think you're also a board member too, aren't you? Aggie?
yeah.
And Center Lake's a great example, because aren't there rental kayaks there?
Yeah.
That, I mean, that's something the city of Warsaw does, but if it wasn't inside a city limit, it's something that we could be looking at doing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's actually been, I think, a pretty successful program just from my observation.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience have anything? Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned for the month. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I believe so.
Yep, it's, and this was with the, we didn't need to sign two, did you?
I think we should do this like once a month.
Okay, good. So I'll let you keep that one. Remember last time I took yours?